Today's readings seem to point at a reversal of a condition, one of which is the healing of the deaf man. This reminds me of my childhood experience when I almost lost my sense of hearing. Well, mindful of the deaf people, have we ever asked their thoughts and feelings about this narrative? Or have we included them in the gospel conversation? Is it possible to have a different reading of this gospel aside from healing? Well, I invite you to enter the deaf world now. For a moment, let's try to be open. Epatha. There are parts in the narrative that we could scrutinize, but I would like to focus on the scene where Jesus and the deaf were alone. Let's try to use our imagination. Well, perhaps Jesus was trying to begin a conversation, and the deaf man was just looking at him, trying to think how to stop him and tell him that he really can't hear anything. Well, if you were the deaf man, what will you do? How will you communicate to Jesus that you can't hear anything? Well, instinctively, a deaf would point to his ear, point to his tongue, and shake his hands and insinuating nothing. I can't hear anything. But more so, do you think the deaf will allow Jesus to touch his own ear and tongue with Jesus' hands? Will you allow Jesus to do that to you? Well, for all the deaf that I asked, for them, they will never allow Jesus. No way. This is a private space, and that's a private part. Well, if that is the case, could it be that it was the deaf who touched his ear and tongue, and it is not Jesus who did it? For most of the deaf that I know, they told me that this is the point where Jesus tries to take time. He looks intently at the deaf, trying to understand the deaf man's expression of the self. For them, this is a process of epatha. It is when Jesus and the deaf man see eye to eye that Jesus finally realized that he has to be open. This time to a person whose language is different, whose tongue is different, not of spoken words, but one of movement. My deaf friends believe that Jesus will show respect and will accept the deaf himself. In fact, the deaf did not give any direct attestation that he was able to hear and speak. It was the narrator who informed us that there was a reversal of a condition. However, it seems that the crowd failed to hear Jesus' instruction, and their tongue broke loose because they were the ones who spread the news. For my deaf community, the story ends with respect and acceptance, with the gesture of embrace. And for them, there's no healing that happened in this narrative, but a conversion of Jesus and the crowd because they begin to be open. Epatha. Yes, this understanding of the gospel might raise our eyebrows or raise questions because the Greek text doesn't state this way. Well, I agree with that. But then we fall into the trap of refusing to see how a deaf can really offer new insights about this gospel because we often exclude them from the conversation. Now, to insist that Jesus indeed healed this deaf, do deaf people really think that there's something wrong in them? Or is this the thing that we instilled into their consciousness? How would you feel if somebody told you that you're broken, that something is wrong with you, that you're damaged, you're defective, and you need a fix, you need to be repaired? How does a medicalized reading of this gospel affect the deaf people? Well, to force them to hear and speak is quite painful. Unfortunately, we focus much on the healing of the deaf man, his condition. In the process, we forget what matters most, and that is the deaf person, the deaf man. A medicalized reading of this story has shaped our relationship with the deaf quite negatively by disengaging from them. Could we, for once, be open, epatha, and let them communicate and express their thoughts and feelings about this gospel, from which we denied it from them and created a negative understanding of deafness and deafhood? Will this alternate reading of the gospel affect us and see deafness not a deformity, rather it's a way of life, and the deaf people as not someone, an object of repair or cure, rather someone who is really diverse? It is only when we begin to be open, epatha, that we will see clearly and say that yes, they correctly express things. Then we will learn to respect, accept, and embrace the deaf people who are wonderfully diverse. Will we be open, epatha?